3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Brute Strength Podcast, where we explore strategies for training, competing, and well-being shared through experiences from some of the sharpest minds in the fitness space. Now, welcome your host, Micah Shoemaker.
I love drama, right? I love it so much. I mean, I don't like when it's about me, but like other people's fine, you know.
Same.
It's fun to watch. I mean, tell me who doesn't like to look at the car on the side of the road that's burning. But if it's you, it's like, anyways. So
CrossFit is full of drama. I don't know why.
Yeah, we get to some of that too. You know, and I was just loving the the whole thing with Mary Helen, and of course, you know, I'm always telling Mary Helen, I'm like, look, I need more, like, I call it Brandon Bean energy, if you know who that is. You know,
yes.
Okay.
205 pronoun.
Yes, I always tell her, I'm like, I need Brandon Bean energy. Like, dude is talking mad smack to, like, people that are really good. And anyways, I'm like, man, I need more of that from you. If we can get that, I think we're going to be good.
Mary Helen is like, I think of her as a silent assassin. She's smiling all the time. She's just at a comp. She just has the biggest smile on, and then she posts a picture on her Instagram of a lion with like half of a dead animal hanging out of its mouth with blood dripping out. I'm like, oh my goodness, is this what's going through your head?
Look, and it's so interesting because, you know, some people just have, a mad case of RBF, and you know that's Ashley. You know, that's my wife. She just walks around with RBF, and so people think that she doesn't like him. And I would say for most people, she doesn't like you. But anyways, I love that. I love the silent assassin. That's a great way, and I think she's a savage. Anyways, I couldn't be more happy that she would post a podium picture, scribble out the girl's face. Like, for those of you listening, some context, she literally posted this podium picture in which she won the competition, and she scribbles out, like goes on the iPhone and goes to markup, right, and scribbles out the girl's face standing next to her. I was like, if that's not a savage move, like I'm gonna beat you down and then I'm gonna step on your throat and finish it move, like I don't know what is.
See, I'd be so scared to do that. I just want people to like me. I'm like,
No, I love it. I love it. I think, there's a little bit of that on the men's side, but like, I think the females, like, I'm just tired of the Katrin Davis daughters of the world and the Annies of the world. Like, they're too nice. Like, that's why I like Danielle. Like, yeah. Let's get angry at each other.
From a spectator perspective, it's a lot more entertaining. I'll give you that.
Exactly. Yeah. I've never been excited about a local competition until yesterday, and people scribbling out people's faces, and I was like, I'm there.
Oh, no.
I'm for it.
I did not know that. Dang.
Yeah, go look at her post. She's a savage, man. But yeah, so I think I don't know how we got off on this topic, but I think we need more of that.
Z-score.
Ellie, do you classify yourself as a snorer? Like, are you someone that snores really bad?
I've lived with my twin my whole life. She never told me I snored. Sean's never told me I snored. I don't think so.
Maybe Sean's just a good person, because some people just, they would never say anything negative about their significant other.
Well, we sleep.
Me, on the other hand,
we have white noise on like 100%, so you would never know.
White noise, like you have a machine like in your room, like that does it.
So Google Home, which I kind of want to get them out of my house because it freaks me out. They keep repeating things that we say, but anyway, it'll do like a surround sound machine, okay. And so we put it on 100%. You couldn't hear anything. I could do grind coffee beans in there, and you could not hear.
Really? I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you pick from other flavors? Can you get like the Atlantic Ocean, some birds?
Yes. Yeah, you can do birds, You can do waterfall, thunderstorm, whatever you want.
So, the reason I'm asking, do you wear a Whoop? I can't remember if you wear one or not.
Actually, I did. We got a free subscription for a year at the Mac, and then mine ran up, and I got a Garmin, and I like a Garmin so much better, I will say.
Okay. Why do you like the Garmin better? Because I'm all about spending unnecessary funds on random things like this.
So I like it because you can program a workout and send it to your watch. So if you're doing like an interval swim workout and you don't want to take your phone and set it up right by, you know, the splash zone, then you can send it to your watch and it'll tell you, okay, 3 seconds before you start your next 400, it'll keep you on the clock. So if someone else is using the clock, you don't have to rely on it, or if you're going to the track. And so I like that, but then also you can do customizable heart rate zones. So it's a lot more specific, and then more if you're like more of an endurance person and not CrossFit, it's going to be much better for a Garmin, I think. But
okay. So I'm going to bring this full circle about the snoring and the Whoop and the Garmin.
Yeah.
You're like, where is he going with this? So
I know you'll.
So on takes me about 5 minutes to get there. It's a slow build, but my God, when it gets there, it's good. So on the Whoop, right? And I don't wear one anymore. I wore one for about 4 years. But anyways, on the Whoop, it'll ask you some questions, you know, the morning of, like when you get up, kind of like a for those listening, it's kind of, I think they call it a journal entry. But anyways, so it's like a series of questions. You can pick some of the questions that they have, and it's really interesting. So one of the questions that they ask is, and I can't remember exactly how it's worded, but it's something like, did you sleep with your, or did someone share the bed with you? I don't want to.
Yes.
So it asks you a bunch of questions like, are you on your period? Did you have sex? Did you drink alcohol? Yeah, sauna. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was just naming all the hot ones, but you know, you were naming the real recovery ones. You know. Look, Ellie, I've been doing this long enough to know how you get the views is not saunas. So, anyways.
That's funny.
You got a lot to learn in the world of media, Ellie. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
I was telling Ashley the other day. Look, I was like, Ashley, we need more spandex butt pics on the IGs. I was like, it's gonna help you get followers. Anyways, so which reminds me of something I want to talk to you about. So, anyways, what I noticed, and this is where I'm going with this. What I noticed was when I slept with Ashley, I got worse sleep than when I did not. So I have the empirical data that I should, this is my lobbying here, that I should be allowed, because like like the term selfish lover, like I really believe, like deep down in my heart, like I'm a selfish sleeper. Like I don't want to share the bed. You know what I'm saying? It's not a matter of I love you, don't love you, I like you, don't like you. It has nothing to do with that. It's like I'm a sleep princess. Okay. Right. I like I like it to be 68 degrees. I like it. I wear an eye mask because we don't have the blackout shades because they're like a bajillion dollars. Okay, you see where I'm going. So I asked you if you snored because, and I'm sure everyone does to a certain extent, but Ashley, it's very unique because she sounds like, if you've ever watched the movie Star Wars, she sounds like Darth Vader. But like if Darth Vader was getting like choked out, like real bad choked out, you know what I'm saying? Like couldn't breathe. No. And that's what's up, right? So she got this sleep study, right? And they were like, "Oh no, you're fine. You just sound like you're dying. It's gonna be okay." And I asked him. I said, "Did they tell you that you snore?" They're like, "Oh no. They actually said I didn't." And I was like, "Well, here's 58 recordings that I have of you sounding like you're dying, right? So I just maybe you should take this to a licensed professional."
What? Is it just the one night she didn't snore?
I don't know. I can't speak to that because I wasn't there, so I don't know. But I'm now just asking other people because for my own data subset, survey. Okay. I just want to understand if one, how many people snore, right? And I'm sure a lot of people do. Someone was telling me the other day, there's this flap in the back of your throat. Anyways, if it's too close to your tonsils, okay. So like I was learning about that because I'm really trying to understand, like, this can't be good for someone if you like can't get air and then in the back of your mouth to breathe. I mean, because that's like what it is, right?
You need to get Ashley to tape her mouth at night and do nasal breathing at night and see if that helps. If she's as bad of a snorer as you're making her sound like she is, she may not even be able to breathe if she tapes her mouth. But have you heard of that?
No, I've never heard of that. If you'd like to educate me, I'd be happy to be educated.
So basically from the Oxygen Advantage, and then there's a bunch of other podcasts I've listened to on it, but basically most of the time we're supposed to be breathing through our nose, not through our mouth. Mm-hmm. And so sleeping at night with a little piece of tape vertically over the top of your mouth can, you're going to log 8 hours a night, hopefully, of nasal breathing. And so, and you've probably seen how much breathing through your nose has now infiltrated CrossFit, even just programming. Like, okay, zone 2, 10 minutes at nasal breathing pace, because it keeps you kind of in that zone 2 range without having to even look at a watch. But that's beside the point. You should just get Ashley to try to tape her mouth and see if that helps.
What do you speaking of like recovery, I see you, or at least people are tagging you and stuff, right? Like, are you a fan of like the saunas? And if you do the saunas, what do you do? What's your prescription? Do you do the red light? Do you do the normal heat? Tell me about that.
Honestly, I do whatever we have access to in Birmingham, and I don't feel like there's a ton of just sauna places. I know there's like Hot Works where you can go work out and sit in the sauna, but I'm not going to do that. Terrible. I did it for a while, but honestly, I made a post about this a few months ago. I just try to work outside in Alabama as much as I can, and I really think I'm getting the same benefits. I don't have the science really to back it up or even be able to articulate it, but I was talking to my coach about it, and someone who works out outside in the heat of Alabama and the humidity, your body is forced to figure out how to handle that, just the overheating from working out and then being outside, which then can boost blood volume potentially, and then overall just make you a fitter person. So I just try to work outside whenever I can. And I even think that helps my recovery just because, now I'm not as shocked when I have to go out to 205 Throwdown in, the heat of August and do 6 events, and I'm just a little bit more accustomed to it. So it's more just like acclimation for me. I don't really take time to go to the sauna for recovery. I probably should, but I haven't really implemented that.
Granted, we are going inside this year, so all you people that complained about your hands burning off, we are going inside. For the 205 Throwdown, you can follow us at 205 Throwdown on Instagram. Anyways, all right, so the shameless plugs. Okay, so here's what I
like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Always be plugging. ABP, always be plugging. The post that you talked about, and I really like that you brought this up because it got shared a bunch, and I'm always interested, right, in people that like what resonates with people. And though the post was about it being hot AF in Alabama, it was, if I remember correctly, and please correct my memory, it was about a lot of mental resilience. And what I mean by that is mental resilience, that a lot of people will make excuses, whether that's in your particular case about having or not having AC, about the day. I mean, you could extrapolate this, right? About, the day maybe not going as planned, maybe from a scheduling standpoint. Maybe it's not convenient to get your, session in at this time or that time, or, whatever the case. But it's more about just getting the work done. Did you grow up playing? Well, I mean, I'm assuming you did. Did you grow up playing sports? And if so, what sport? And then I'm gonna ask a follow up on that based off that, because I've got this theory. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you go for it.
Yeah, it was swim team every summer, and then basketball and tennis. I transitioned to basketball later in life, junior year, later in life of high school, and then but it was mostly tennis actually, which was a bad idea. But you can ask your follow-up question.
Well, first of all, I'm absolutely enamored that you said basketball, because those that don't know you, how tall are you?
So I'm 5'1". I am not. I am not a power athlete. So I was thinking about this the other day, actually, Micah. I chose the worst sports for my
100%.
genetic propensities. Basketball, you need to be powerful and you need to be tall. I am not powerful. I'm very aerobic, and I am not tall. And I just, in my mind, I was like, this is what I'm gonna get a D1 scholarship in. Basketball is it. Like, this is it. And it's like cross country. Like, what was I don't know what I was thinking, but I think it's the challenge. I thought about it for a while, and I'm like, okay, even CrossFit, for example, if you look at it on paper, I should not be pursuing CrossFit. I should probably go sign up for some sprint triathlons, and I could potentially win some money there. You know, there is something about just where a lot of the odds are kind of stacked against you that just attracts me so much more than going and crushing an event that everyone's going to say, oh, you should be really good. Your VO2 max is this, or you're a very aerobic athlete. Like, to me, I don't know. I would rather someone be like, wow, you're not super powerful and you worked really hard to get strong. That's impressive, right? Or like you're a 5'1" basketball player who doesn't look like you'd be good at basketball and you're really good. There's just, I don't understand it. So I'm trying to get in my own head and figure out why I'm like that. But the more I learn about myself growing up, that's how I've always been. Like, I pick stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense.
And I think that's one of the reasons I really like the post, right? That it was despite the odds being stacked against you. I mean, in this case, it's very simple to understand. It's, you know, the heat and the humidity, and my gosh, are people in for a rude awakening when they come here in August in 2 years for the CrossFit Games? My gosh, you better bring the size shorts you wear than the size down, because let me tell you, it's going to be Weight Watchers 4.0 on this thing. Okay, I'm going to tell you, you're going to lose some weight. It's going to be good for you. All right, you're going to get in shape, even if you're hitting the Miller Lights hard. But anyways, so okay, I am, and I was talking to Todd Wise about this. I don't know in what order these podcasts are being released, but it may be coming up, or maybe I don't really remember. But here nor there, Todd Wise is a great coach. He coached a age group masters world champion this year at the CrossFit Games, and yeah, he's a great coach. And he and I were discussing this topic about CrossFitters and their propensity to pursue hard things. And I said something to him. I said, you know, I really believe that hard things for the majority of us really serve as a compass of sorts, as a reset to what it is that's hard and what it is that's not. Let me say it this way, it's a recalibration in a lot of ways. And I think that's, you know, and I was telling him, I was like, you know, when I first started CrossFit, I was so obsessed about achieving an outcome, you know, quite frankly, achieving a goal. I said 4 years into like really hardcore competitive CrossFit, not that I just started CrossFit 4 years ago, but like really where I was like, all right, I'm going to try. What I've realized is the evolution of why I started, which was maybe a little shallow, to why I'm continuing to do it. And those two things could not be further from each other. One has to very much do with what I wanted to achieve and what I wanted to ultimately have people see me as or for, and the other became about the person I wanted to continue to become.
Everything you're saying is reminding me. Have you read a book called Comfort Crisis? The Comfort Crisis?
No, I've never even heard of that book.
Okay, I know you like to read, so
I do.
You should
I like to
listen. Or listen audiobook. Actually, this was one I did audiobook. This was not one that you need need to get the hard copy. But anyway, his name's Michael Easter, the guy that wrote it. And the premise of the book is basically, now in today's culture, subconsciously, we're all kind of wired to seek, all of our decisions subconsciously are made out of what is going to make me most comfortable. And you can fight that all day long, but it's really true, right? He talks about how we don't ever really have a lot of exposure to uncomfort, especially in America and in this day and age where everything is climate controlled, where our house, everything is made to make things as fast as possible, as quick and as easy as possible. And then he goes back to, the primal times where breakfast, lunch, and dinner wasn't a thing. You just ate when you've killed something. Like, you didn't know when your next meal was. It was cold or hot all the time. You were never really comfortable. But he compares and contrasts like then to now, and how we're just, for lack of a better word, we can get just so shallow and just lack of creativity. And there's just a lot that we lack because we strive for just comfort, that we miss out on a lot of things that I don't even think we know we're missing out on, just because we're so used to just what makes me comfortable inside, working out inside. How little can I sweat? I just, it's really been impactful to me. I'm reading it right now, and it's like, wait, instead, let me just go run outside in the heat and not listen to my AirPods and just run in solitude and let my let my thoughts run. That's not a bad thing. I think people are afraid to be alone with their thoughts now too. So it's been really, really eye-opening to me. I think you would like the book.
Do you find yourself actively trying to put yourself in situations that otherwise could be easier, but you're choosing to make it harder, like purposefully putting yourself in these situations? Do you find that in your own life and even in your own training?
Yeah, as someone, I have an extremist personality, so if my coach puts 8 to 12 minutes, I'm always going to go 12, even if I shouldn't. But then also, it can be a good thing and a bad thing. But yeah, I'll work out, I'll do my row intervals outside in the blazing heat just because I feel like I don't want to waste that opportunity. And so it can be a bad thing because then it can go too far. But yeah, looking in hindsight, I guess I do a lot of times. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, for those that don't really know you, I'll fill them in because you're probably not going to say some of these things about yourself. So I feel like I can say them and it'll be okay. You're one of the most aerobic people that I know, and I know you hear that a lot, but it's for people listening, they may not know who you are yet. And not just aerobic, but to the point where, you'll pull a top 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 finish in the world in a, couplet or a triplet in the open. And it's, impressive. It doesn't even cut it, right? It's literally being world class at something. Literally, like the very definition of being world class is what you are able to exude in that stage of CrossFit competition. How, because obviously you've continued to grow, and you've already alluded to it. You said, hey, I'm not the most powerful athlete, I'm not the strongest athlete, but I'm really aerobic. You also said, hey, I tend to actively choose the hard route. We walked up the hill both ways to and from school. And it's like, I don't even know how that's geographically possible, first of all. Okay. All right. But that's a different story. Like, I don't know if your parents told you that. Yeah, when I was going to school, we walked to and from school uphill. And I'm like, you don't have to be a genius to figure out that's not possible.
That's not possible.
Okay. Folks, if you go up a hill, to come back, you have to go, wait for it, down the hill. Anyways, back to my story. So you've mentioned all these things. It seems to me, and I think this is, this is just beautiful how this is just coming together so cohesively. folks, I really don't plan this. It just happens. I mean,
I'm excited to see how it does.
Yeah. Okay. Look, you mentioned that you're not the most powerful athlete. You mentioned you're not the most, you're not the strongest athlete in the field. You do happen to be one of the most aerobic athletes. And when I say that, it's not just, like we're talking world class. I mean, we're talking Haley Adams type of aerobic people. Yeah,
I don't know.
It's crazy. No, I do. It's okay. I do. I know. That's all that matters. Anyways, and then on the flip side of that, you speak about how, comfort, and you speak about how you're actively trying to make these decisions that are in line with the person that you want to be, and you realize that in order to grow, that there's got to be some discomfort, and there's got to be some tension. There's going to be some tension about, from where you are to where you want to be, and in that tension, it's going to get really uncomfortable. And my question is, being so good at something like that, like your aerobic nature, and you already mentioned it, you could go do sprint tries and probably crush people. Why not go do that? And I'm just playing devil's advocate. Why not? Like what's driving you to continue to do this? Because, and I know you know this because you're a very realistic and logical human being. There's no, for all of us, there's no, certainty at the end of this thing that you're ever going to get to where you want to get to, right? And that's like the scariest thing in CrossFit or any endeavor, in my opinion, is there is truly and honestly, you can think what you want to think and be, optimistic Polly. But the reality is there's no certainty at the end of all of this.
I love that you said that because I wrote a blog post a while ago about 5 lessons that I've learned from sport, just CrossFit and then sports I've played growing up. And one of the things I said in there was that you have to figure out how to be okay with striving for years and years and years for something and never getting it. It, as in that end result, whatever it might be, making a semifinal or whatever. And I have to remind myself of that all the time because I'll just go work out day in and day out and be like, why am I spending so much time doing this? And then realistically, CrossFit could change everything again and I may not make semifinals next year, So I have to wrestle with that a lot, but I think a lot of it goes back to a lot of my personality. But when I first started CrossFit, people told me all the time, you're really aerobic, like you're going to be really good at these things. And there were 2 years in a row where we were going to have a team go to regionals, and that's all I cared about, regionals. Like all I cared about was making regionals. I was in college, and that was my sole pursuit. And 1 year the team fell apart, but then the second year it came down to essentially choosing between myself and another girl, because at the time one of us had, at that year I did have a top 10 finish in the worldwide, and I had like another top 20, so it was a good year for me, but then I had a really bad strength event finish. So the way that the numbers worked out, worldwide I was higher than her, and then in the gym though she had beaten me. And so it came down to, okay, we're just going to choose one of the two of you to be on the team. And I had never gone to regionals yet, and I was not chosen, so the other person was chosen. And at the time, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me, which says a lot. But I was so upset. And I have notes and notes and notes in my iPhone of just the way I felt and how I never wanted to be in that position again, but it ultimately, it came down to me. Yes, I wasn't chosen, but there were things I could have done and taken responsibility for to make it not a question and not have to come down to other people's choice. And side note, that's also why I hate doing team. I hardly ever do team because I don't want anything to rely, and people give me crap for it. They're like, you think you're too good to do team. I'm like, no, I don't. The number of teams that have fallen apart because someone's doing something with someone else or being sketchy, or someone gets sick and teams fall apart, and I'm just like, what the heck? I just want to be in control of it. Rises or falls, and it's my fault if I do bad, and it's my fault if I do well. But that goes back to basically, I was like, I never want to feel like this again. And I'm going to do everything I can to try to prove people wrong. They didn't choose me. And it wasn't really that I just wanted to be good at CrossFit to be good at CrossFit. I heard people saying, like, you're just not, their strength event is going to come up and we're not going to do good because you won't be able to clean X bar. And yes, that's true. But I took it very personally. And I think that's really helped me going forward in CrossFit. It's not really, I don't know how to phrase this, but I'm not doing it. I want to be good at CrossFit to like prove people wrong that said I never would be. And I'm not that big. I know Matt Fraser says something similar. I'm not that big of a deal, but it's very motivating for me to be like, hey, they said I would never make an individual regionals, and I made one last year, you know? And so for me, that's a lot. It's really motivating for me to kind of think of it that way.
How do you not allow...
I have people's names in the notes that told me I would never do it. So I look back on that a lot.
Now we're getting somewhere, Ellie. See, this is what I wanted. I wanted to bring out the lion. You know, you talk about Mary Helen. See how this is coming full circle.
How do you do this to me, Micah? I'm supposed to look good on here.
I'm a therapist. Don't worry, guys. I'm not licensed. It's okay. All right. So, well, all great CrossFitters have a little crazy in them. You know what I'm saying? All great CrossFitters have a little 100%. Crazy.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. And if you don't, you're probably not any good. Anyways, all right. So moving on. How do you not allow that label? And I'm fascinated with this. How do you not allow that label that people have? I'm not saying you've given yourself, but maybe others have given you of you're not strong. Maybe you'll never be strong enough. Even yikes. You'll never be powerful enough. How do you not allow that limitation, or excuse me, that label rather, to be your limitation? Like, be the thing that you like used to like. Maybe you don't even think that, but my gosh, if someone tells you enough times, all of a sudden it's in the back of your head and you're thinking, God, like, maybe I'm not going to be strong enough. Maybe I'm never, like, how do you not allow that to start dictating really your future and the actions that it may or may not take to be able to get to that future?
Yeah, I actually really like that question because I had a conversation with my coach a few days ago. And we were talking about it could it could take years, like 3 to 4 years for me to get my strength where it needs to be. And when he said that, I was like, and he's like, you have to be okay with that. And I heard Dom on your podcast saying that. Like I forget who he was referring to, maybe James Sprague, but he's like, sometimes it takes that 3-year hump of dedicated strength work, and then you start seeing that progress. But I have to be I'm super realistic. I'm a realist, and I understand that, yes, for me and where I'm currently at, it could potentially take that long or longer. And that to me is just that. It's just words. It's true. It could potentially be true, but it could also not be true. And I think back of the Roger Bannister thing, like everything. That is just what people have known, is that, okay, no one ran a, sub 4-minute mile? Is that what it was? So that was only the limitation until someone broke it. And then people just started breaking it after one person did it, right? And so I have to remind myself, just because there's not a case study that I can think of someone like me who maybe got strong in X amount of years, doesn't mean that I can't be the one to do it. And if I don't keep that mindset, then I'll quit. And I have to be a realist, but also be very intentional about putting myself in that mindset of, okay, like, why not me? Why can't I be the one to just put in the work and see how long it takes, right? Where did 3 years come from? Like, was that a case study on someone else? I don't know. Can I be a case study of 2 years? I don't know. So, and I was having another conversation too about Kyle, my coach, was saying, okay, rowing for you is also something that we really need to work on. And you're at a biomechanical disadvantage, right? Just like a tall person is at a biomechanical disadvantage for a burpee, and that's advantageous for me.
Sure.
People like Matt Frazier, for example, he was at a biomechanical disadvantage for rowing, but somehow managed to finish top 10 in most rowing workouts. So unless I choose to take on the mindset of if they can do it, I can too, then I never will. And so I just have to, that's where I have to live, or I'm not going to keep doing this.
So you have made it on a team to semifinals. Is it 2 times or is it 3?
One. I was an alternate 1 year, and then I went to the MAC, and then I went individual. So I've only been twice to a semifinal.
Okay, got it. And then semifinals are over, so you never even have a chance to make it to another one because we're back to super regionals.
Yep.
Check.
Which everyone I felt like wanted to make a regional. At least me. I'm like, regionals was the goal. Semifinal, cool, but like regionals is what I wanted to make. I don't know. It just sounds better.
Yeah, it does. It sounds cooler than semifinals.
Yeah.
Regionals. Yeah, it sounds cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you make it to the Atlas Games this past year in the 2022 season, and it was one of those things where, like, I think you were like right on the bubble, and then you end up getting an invite. What was that process like? I mean, I know we texted a little bit about it, but in terms of like your psyche of not knowing if you were going to get the invite because there was no, there was nothing for certain, and then you end up getting it. I mean, what was that process like for you, kind of walking through that?
So you and Ashley were actually some of the first people I texted. I don't know if I told you all that, but
Thank
I
you,
put
by
you
the
on
way.
your message. Yeah.
I feel like I've made it.
I feel like y'all I don't remember, but y'all were super encouraging about potentially. Y'all were like, yeah, you could probably get one, and I didn't think I could, but yeah, I remember I texted y'all as soon as I found out. But it was basically before the final workout of snatches and burpee, box jump overs, and rowing of quarterfinals. I knew exactly what I needed to get placement wise to make a semifinal, because I had 2 really good finishes, like top 50 or 20 or something. And then I knew my strength event was bad, but it was like at the time, I think 3 top really good finishes. So I knew I had to get, 350th or up to qualify. And I calculated it, and I was like 5 seconds off of that. I did the workout 6 times that day. I did it so many times, and I was like,
and this is the last, just so I'm clear and everyone listens clear, this is the last quarterfinal workout, which was the row, burpee, box jump over, snatch. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like 30, 20, or 20, 15, 10, something like that.
Yep, 10 snatches at 135. So it was the same weight year prior with snatches that they did.
Okay,
and that was hard for me. So anyway, poor Sean, he had to stay there for so long in video, just deal with me. But yeah, I remember I actually have this video on my Instagram too. I remember I did it, and the 6th time, and I was like, okay, at this point, I'm not going to get what I need to get if I just keep doing it. And I just sat on the box, and I'm not an emotional person really, but I just sat there, and Steph, one of my good friends, Steph Terry, was in the gym in Aston, and I sat there, and I told him, I'm like, I'm never gonna make it. And my self-talk was not good at the moment, but that's just all I could think of. Just, this is what I've been wanting for 3 or 4 years and spending so much time trying to achieve. And I'm never gonna make it. And I have that video on my Instagram, and then I kind of came to terms with it. Okay, now back to work for the off season. I'm just going to try to make it next year. 2 months, I want to say 2 months go by. When was quarterfinals?
Quarterfinals was March.
March. Okay, so then I get in April. We're out at my family's land, and I see some girls who are ahead of me on the leaderboard posting their invite, and I'm like, okay, I was 130, I think, or something. and top 20 go. And all of a sudden, the 8th girl, 128, posts something on Instagram. And I was like, oh my goodness, we're 2 spots out and not all the semifinals are filled up yet. And I didn't want to get my hopes up. I was just like, no, it's not going to happen. And then I'm out of my parents' land and I get an email about the Atlas Games and they're like, you're invited. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So immediately signed up, and we're only a few weeks out from the Atlas Games. So I had been preparing as if I was going to get an invite. So thankfully my coach was giving me training as if I was going to go. But it was very surreal at the time because it's just something that you think about all the time, and it's all you've wanted is to qualify for a semifinal, and then it happens and you're just like, wow, what do I do now? Like, now I actually have to go do it. So yeah, it was one of the coolest moments for me in CrossFit because it's what I've been training for. So,
and you get there, and I remember seeing the the leaderboard. I think after day 1, and you probably know the exact place you were, but you were either top 5 or within striking distance of top 5. Again,
yes,
you probably know. Okay, you were 6. Yeah, I figured you knew exactly what it was, and I was like, man. And I know that you're like, from talking to you and being friends with you, I know you're a very like realistic person. And from what I do know about you and have seen, you're not someone that rides the ups and downs. I would call you a pretty emotionally stable person. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible. Like,
Thank you.
Right. No, seriously. There are some athletes that are incredibly unstable emotionally, and I think that's one of their biggest faults, the reason that they can't get it together. It's just like they just ride the highs and the lows, and it's so extreme throughout the day and throughout the competition. It's like if it's kind of funny. I was telling Ashley this too. Like, we've kind of made a decision as a team, like how we want to handle, and I'm going to get back to Atlas Games in a second, but how we want to handle, because I think this is valuable for people listening, how we want to handle competitions. Like, she wants to be the RFB or RBF. Yeah, bitch face. Yeah, RBF, right? Like that's what she wants to be. Like, she resonates with that. Like, that's her style. She doesn't want to talk to you in the corral. She wants to step on your throat. She wants to be like even keel, not smile for the camera, like very, like that's who she wants to be as a competitor. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. She doesn't want to get excited about the highs. She doesn't want to get disappointed about the lows. She just wants to, just stay very even keel. And she doesn't want to show a lot of emotion. That's not who she wants to be as a competitor. I think for people listening to this, how you could apply this is asking yourself, what type of competitor do I want to be, and how does that align with the person that I want to be? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong either way. I'm not saying being even keel. I'm not saying being, getting excited about the highs and at least for a second being disappointed about the lows. But asking yourself those things will really help put some, we'll call it bumper rails in place for when the ball goes to the gutter, because it will, let me tell you, unless you're, the top in the world. And by top in the world, we're talking like maybe 2, max 3 people ever that, you're going to probably deal with a lot more of that. And I think that's a really valuable thing. And being able to have a conversation with your coach or your team or whomever it is, I think from my perspective, in going to a semifinal, seeing how that works, and now it's going to be super regionals, obviously, but seeing how it works can be incredibly valuable, because you're going to see all these different girls or guys, whatever, do their thing, and it's easy to think, well, I need to emulate that. And it's like, I would argue no. You need to be really true to who you are as a person, and if you're not this, like, especially females, from what because I also ironically coach majority females. I coach about 90% females. I coach very few men, which is very ironic. It's very ironic. I don't see myself as a female coach, but it's all good. It's what the good Lord gave me. So I'm excited.
You're crushing it.
I'm excited. Look, I'll be the first to say it. The girls are way, way more of a savage than the guys will ever be. That's Period. End of story. End of story. Like, give me the girls all day.
You have some good ones.
So
you have some good ones.
Yeah, I know. Thankful for that. But anyways, so I say all of that because you're in a really good spot day one. I remember looking at the leaderboard and I was excited for you. I was like, man, this is awesome. I'm sure she's really excited, but I also know she's realistic and knows like, hey, there's some stuff coming that's like going to be a challenge. That's going to start challenging, some of those upper limits. What was that conversation like after day one, whether it was with your team or your coach, not just about your placement, but about really what was coming next and how you guys plan to attack that? Because I'm assuming the goal, and this is a large assumption, was to qualify, no matter what.
I wanted to see how good I could do. I know that's a lame answer, but I'm just realistic in the fact that unless the programming is just incredibly not biased against strength, it's just not realistic for me. So once I get my strength numbers there, absolutely. But because I know my capacity is there, and most of CrossFit is capacity. But yeah, that's a long-winded answer for I was realistic this year. So don't get me wrong, I wanted to go out and win workouts, and I knew there was the potential for that. There were some I got top 5 in, but I just knew with strength events coming, it was going to be hard. So, I think to answer your question, I think I have had to learn that the number of things that I can eliminate that surprise me, the better off I'll be. So knowing that, okay, on the second day was the strength day. It was the heavy snatches and the complex. I was in the final heat for that. I worked my way into the final heat from the last heat. So I was in the last heat for the first day and then jumped the second. But now I'm in the final heat for events that it doesn't really matter because I don't really need that push. I know I can just do what I can do on strength. So I had to know, okay, I'm riding this high, but tomorrow I'm going to be on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm going to have to figure out how to not let myself be surprised by that so that I don't get down and let it affect the next workout. In basketball, my coach used to always say, next play, because he would see me kind of hang my head and I'd get upset if I made a mistake. And that's just drilled into me now. Like, next play, if you think about what happened 10 seconds ago, whether good or bad, it's going to have an effect on your next play. So you just got to learn how to just drop it and move on and focus on what's right in front of you. And so for me, I don't do it perfectly all the time, but that's my strategy, is knowing that, okay, I'm not going to speak a bad finish into existence by saying I'm bad at strength. Like, I'm not going to do that, but I'm not going to let it ruin, okay, I worked really hard and did well the first day, but I'm going to give everything I have the final day and not hang my head and act like I'm a victim, you know? So I hate that. Victim mentality that's a soapbox I'll get on, but we won't talk about that.
Well, right. I think it's easy to feel sorry for yourself, because at the end of the day, it's like, there's nothing you can do. It's like, if you can't pick up the 180-pound bar, you can't pick up the 180-pound bar. There's no will that you can, utilize in that situation. It's like, just can't do it.
Yeah. That's the frustrating thing. That's the most frustrating thing about where I'm at with CrossFit right now, is less is more sometimes with strength. And so I'm having, it's not like a Metcon or whatever where I can go and just drill aerobic stuff all the time and work harder. That actually can work against me with this. So I need to be patient and just do what I have for the day and not be tempted to do a ton of extra stuff, which I am. But same thing for a competition. Like, grit is not really going to help me that much if I can't clean the bar, right? If I'm not there, I can grit through a long Metcon chipper and that can help me, but it's just hard because you can't really do much with strength. If you're not strong enough, you're not strong enough. So.
Yeah. I agree. And I think, one of the things that I talk about with Ashley and a lot of the people that I coach is, the sport has only gotten stronger. I mean, you can just look at from 2010, to where we are today. And and what I'm more impressed with is really the women's side the women's side has gotten considerably stronger. I mean, you look back in, what was it, 2010, and Annie getting like her first muscle up, like that's like insanity, right? And now there's girls banging out sets of 10. It's just what, right? Yeah. And it's like a decade really isn't a long time, at least not for sport, right? I mean, whereas something like football and soccer, like these sports have been around way longer, and you look at that evolution, right? And so you start to have something to compare it against, or another sport to compare it against, and you realize, man, this is infancy, truly, in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of sport. So as the weekend goes on, things, you mentioned like the strength events, they don't go as optimally as obviously you would like, but obviously you do the best you can. At that point, like, I hate these like participation ideas that like, well, I'm just going to do the best I can. And like, sure, that's sexy to say. Like, I get it. Okay. Like, everybody's doing the best they freaking can. Okay. But like, competitor to competitor, that's not what we're thinking in the moment. Like, we're disappointed. We want it to be better. Man, like, you're questioning things. Am I doing the right things? Like, should I even be doing this at all? Like, sometimes it gets to that.
Yeah.
Looking back on the weekend, and I'm sure the answer is much different now as you're, emotionally removed from that experience of what was the 3 days of semifinals. Looking back on that experience, what do you feel like you gathered? Like, what do you think like you learned from that and have kind of taken forward to the 2023 season?
Yeah. I know my big hole, so I know what I need to work on. But at the same time, I didn't win an event. And there were events that were really good for me. I did well, but there were some I didn't do great in. So I learned that if you're really good at something, you're still not the best at it. And so I think I have in my mind, since I have such a big strength gap, that, I've arrived when it comes to burpees. No, I haven't. I can there's still so much room to improve in things that I'm already good at. Plug for performance-based scoring. It would really benefit, with Z-score, just to keep working on what I'm good at. But, no, all jokes aside, I learned, like, there's still people that are just as fast at things you're really good at. So, but then also too, it's just given me, more of a mindset in my training about just being intentional rather than just check off all the boxes, because everyone at a certain point in time, like, everyone can only get so good at GHDs, for example. Like, we had 100 GHDs at Atlas. There's a very hard and fast line of max potential on that, in my opinion. Like, you can cycle it at max speed without fatigue being a factor, and people are going to be very, very similar. So I've had to learn, okay, like, where can I, in training, maximize other parts of a workout where there's a little bit more room for growth, like not chalking up between movements I don't really need chalk at, or even the amount of time I spend between movements is just as important as I spend on the actual movement. So it's kind of shifted my mindset around just how I think about my own training is kind of being more smart rather than just go as hard as I can and be gritty. So I learned a lot in that regard. Like, where can I make up time that other people may not be thinking of?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think at some point it's like if you're doing a box jump over or a burpee box jump over at, what is it, 3.7 seconds? You know, like that's your like that's about as fast as you're probably gonna get it.
Right.
And so at that point, there's gotta be something else. Like, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, even at Crash these past few weekends, Crash Crucible, there was a workout. It was burpee box jump overs and chest to bars. And the people that grabbed chalk, it was such a short workout. I mean, they had no chance, and that's truly good. No one needed chalk in a 4-minute workout. Like, it was a 2-minute workout. And so, but it's just so, I realized how, ingrained in my mind it is, okay, I'm about to get on the bar, chalk up. And then I forced myself. I didn't even put chalk near me. I threw it away, and it helped a ton. You can make up 5 seconds or more, and it's just, okay, what am I doing just because I've always done it, and is that actually the thing that I need to be doing? So, yeah, big lessons I've learned.
Do you like the changes in the CrossFit season? So obviously the rule book has not come out, so we're kind of unsure with how many spots. I like myself and other invested parties, you've probably seen the list floating around Instagram of the East versus the West, especially on the women's side. Obviously that's where I put a lot of my eyeballs and attention, for simply because of the females that I coach, so it affects them. You know, while, God, this is going to sound disrespectful, but I'm going to say it, but the West looks like an, you know, AAU basketball league, and the East looks like the, you know, NBA Celtics.
Yeah.
Like, it's, I mean, how much thought, if any, have you put into that?
I haven't put a ton. Again, my answers are very similar. I'm very confident in my capacity against even a competitive field, but it doesn't matter if my strength is going to negate it. So I'm really just kind of tunnel vision on that. So I don't really let myself get too concerned about stuff like that, because I think now the field is bigger, right? It's 60 in the East and 60 in the West.
That's right.
Yeah. So I in my mind, it won't affect who qualifies for semis. It affects really who qualifies for the games, right?
Yeah. So here's the way I understood it, and again, the rule book is supposed to come out around the same time next month that the season structure came out this month. So we, you know, hopefully in the next 3 or 4 weeks we'll be able to see that. But the way I understand it is the East and the West of the United States of America are now 2 separate entities, just like Asia is an entity, or Oceania, or etc. So here's my understanding of how this works. It's top 60 in the East go, top 60 in the West go. So it's still 120, but that distribution is relative to that geographical location. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. But it's just going to be a lot harder to qualify for the games out of the East, where maybe
100%.
You know, the 15th person would have been like first in the West or something.
Yes, and so, you know, not to get too far down this rabbit hole, but that's why I'm very interested to see how the distribution of game spots work, because I do not think, as of this current moment, if we look at the current roster and where people are, that it should be just 10 and 10, and then we'll give a few more to the East because it's harder. No, I think it should be based off of, you know, first of all, it shouldn't be equal male and female. And what I mean by that is maybe the East gets 10 female spots, whereas say the males is not as competitive, so they get 8, for example, right? Because I can tell you right now, that female field in the East is insanely more competitive than the West, and even more so than the males' respective field. So it's just it's going to be interesting, and I hope my hope and prayer is that CrossFit has a chance to really get this right, and I'm excited for that for the first time ever. Like, really look at the data and look at, you know, God, that would be so great if we use data and not Instagram followers as our guiding star. God, I would love it so much.
The standardized programming is going to be so great. I mean, there are people that qualified last year for the games that I know, had they been in another semifinal, would not have qualified. Even just if you look at the syndicate, how heavy it was compared to if someone had been at Atlas, where it was very gymnastics biased. That's 2 totally different athletes, you know? Like, I think that is a really, really good move, standardized.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thought that the two workouts is going to be enough to standardize something is asinine. No. I mean, it just is. So I'm in agreement to that. I think that move is great. as of now, my only concern, barring that I don't know the official direction, given that we haven't got the rule book, but my only concern now is the distribution of spots, because it's very clear if you look at it on paper and become very non-emotional around the whole thing. It's very clear, in my estimation, that the East is simply more stacked than the West. And look, it makes you think Mississippi's looking like a real nice place to live.
That cracks me up. I just laugh every time I see the map. I'm like, Mississippi, what? Where did they get that?
They literally took the Mississippi River and said, that'll do her.
I mean, like, Mississippi is the most southern, or not southern, but I just feel like it's just so, it's Alabama. It's in the East. Yeah. It's hilarious.
It's one of. It's the folks, I'm renaming it. Mississippi is the West Coast Alabama.
Where are you actually?
Oh, God bless America. Yeah. All right, that's good. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about and discuss, to dialogue over before we get off here?
Dang.
Anything that tickles your fancy?
Yeah. No, I'm excited to see the Z-Score podcast come out. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Tyler's a good guy. I like him. I like him, even though I started the conversation off with Z-Score is the scoring system for communists. But anyways.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, for real.
It's the opposite. It's like the capitalism.
That's why you have to listen to the podcast.
It's merit based.
Oh, it's like that. It's like that Will Ferrell quote. It gets the people going. You got to insert some controversy.
Okay, all right. Well, it'll be a teaser for the next podcast, but I think it's the opposite of communism. You get rewarded based on how good you are.
So I like the way Dex put it. He said Z-Score is the communist version of you're up by 50, but you got to leave the starters in because you're going to get penalized if you put the backups in. It would be like imagine this. And I can't wait for this comment to get clipped and get on the internet somewhere, but that's all right. Hey, sometimes you got to hoe out for the eyeballs. Anyways, so imagine this, Ellie. Imagine you're an Alabama fan, right?
No, War Eagle.
Okay, good. Great. Then let's use this example. All right. Imagine Alabama is beating, I don't know, Middle Tennessee State by 50. And got a great lead. Second half comes around. Tennessee State hasn't scored a point. Well, Alabama goes, hey, you know what? We're going to take these guys out. Bryce Young don't need to play anymore. We can put in, Uncle Tommy over here, right? Off the bench warmers. It's going to be great. But the issue now is that these folks, Middle Tennessee, are going to have a much easier time moving down the field. So instead of marching methodically down the field, because, we got the eighth string in, the dudes are not even on scholarship, heck, they're lucky if they even get a free Gatorade after practice, all right, are just getting hosed. Okay, so now Middle Tennessee State throws a bomb, and that bomb turns into a touchdown. But we're going to weight that differently because they didn't have to march methodically down the field. They just threw a Hail Mary full of grace. And let me tell you, the Lord was with them that day.
That is not the same. I don't think it is. We need Tyler in here.
No, I told that to him, and he was rolling his eyes. But yeah, whatever. Look, there's a whole hour podcast, hour 15 podcast coming out on Z Scoring. It's gonna give you my comments, my very uninformed comments. Anyway.
I'm excited to hear it. I know they revamped it. Him and Alexis Johnson revamped it after Crash, so now it's even better. So
yes, I didn't realize she was such a math whiz. That's pretty cool.
Genius. Yeah, she has her PhD. I was like, oh.
She has her PhD in math?
Yeah, she was a professor. I'm like, I thought you were like my age. I thought you were like 24. But no, she like taught as a professor and then does something now. Work from home, I think.
Wow, and she's a CrossFitter.
I know. Yeah.
Clearly she didn't do that math about how much money she's not going to make.
Yeah, CrossFit. Yeah, not the place to make all the money, but it's fun.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Well, anyways, all right, Ellie, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. This was fun. I'm glad we got to get on together, chat about some life.
Yeah. And, thanks for having me. This is great. I've checked off a goal. Make the Brute Strength podcast.
That's right.
Thanks, Micah.
Yeah, absolutely, Ellie. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening to Brute Strength Podcast. As always, you can head over to brutestrengthtraining.com to connect with us and access the links and resources mentioned in this podcast. That's brutestrengthtraining.com for exclusive content and giveaways just for you, our podcast listeners. Consider subscribing so you never miss out. That's all for this episode. See you next time.